So we are going to get started now. So just for everyone's knowledge, this is work incentives, where to get help to keep your job and your Social Security benefits. If you are looking for a different room, I'm sure one of the room monitors can help you find the correct room. Okay, we're going to start off by doing,
By Social Security, you mean SSI?
Yes. So we're going to start off with introductions. I'm Eliana. I'll be the moderator today. So next is Rosy. She's going to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Rosy Tellez, and I'm with the Peer Self-Advocacy Program at Disability Rights California, and my pronouns are she, her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josue Espitia. I'm a benefits counselor with MCS, and I work in a program called WIPA, which stands for Work Incentives, Planning, and Assistance. We offer benefits counseling to individuals who have Social Security benefits and who are looking for employment or who are employed.
Hi, I'm Paula Tobler. I'm a supervising attorney at Disability Rights California, working with Rosy. I work on like the Social Security Return to Work programs, like the Ticket to Work. And I also help people with reasonable accommodations that we want to work into the accommodations. And I also have to help disabilities myself and supervise people with disabilities. Work and disabilities is my thing.
Thank you, Paula. So we're going to...
The back was there.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay.
Thank you.
I pressed the wrong button part, sorry.
So without further delay, I'll just like to share with you a little bit about my personal lived experience navigating Social Security benefits and having to be employed. So one of the things I like to share is, early on, I'm someone who with lived experience with a mental health disability who's been serviced by the Department of Mental Health Services since the age of 10. So you can think when folks talk about recovery, to me was more about what's there for me to discover, right? Since I never really knew what being well was like, right? That I could remember. So navigating mental health services and having to go to school was also a challenge early on in my years. I didn't do well with the social settings, especially with a lot of folks looking at me. I had a little bit of reservations with that throughout the course of my wellness journey. I remember being so scared and to the term of being considered ergophobic. I didn't go out of my house for 4 years due to my fear of public and folks. And especially something about your beautiful eyes looking at me was just so intimidating. That was just so intimidating that now I'm comfortable, but it took a lot of work to get through. So early on, it was like, they would suggest group supports and, come to support groups. I'm like, I have enough time just having my therapist looking at me, nevertheless, right, to be surrounded by other folks. So that was one of my fears. I was really drawn to be very social and love, speaking with folks and hanging out from folks and learning from them. That was never an issue. It was always some other internal stuff that I was dealing with from early on. So to say the least, navigating my mental health service, not only did I have therapy, I continued to support groups. I partake of self-help and other support groups, self-help, and also self-advocacy. So I had an opportunity to benefit from all the supports that were available to me at the time, which were very few. One of the things is my first language is Spanish. So having to find any services or any information in the Spanish language was also difficult. I can tell you that also dealing with my monolingual speaking mother, who I was her primary translator back when, you would go to obtain services at many like DPSS and many other organizations or centers and agencies, and there was not much Spanish speaking staff. So I had to do that role early on. As I said, navigating my wellness, it was something that I didn't have much support back then. The one thing that I really did appreciate was, as I would say, this was like my chosen family, other peers, other people that, provided support, folks that really were able to hold that hope for us or for myself when I couldn't even see that for myself. I couldn't even see beyond a couple of months or a couple of days away from the day I was living, because there was a moment in time I didn't even know what date it was, who was the president, and we would joke, okay, John Wayne, you can remember the reference from the movie, right? So there was so many things that really occluded my clarity back then. I was someone who too dealt with, my diagnosis at the time was I was considered to be someone with schizophrenia, with paranoia and illusions and visual and auditory hallucinations and tactile stuff going on and all. That also impacted my eating back then. So I could tell you, I was someone that I'm no longer experiencing those symptoms today, thank God. It's been a wellness journey there. To say the least. I was able to hold a job and be an optician for many years. So I started working at the age of 14. I didn't quite navigate a traditional school. I didn't have like a prom and a graduation as a lot of folks. That was also something that my mental health impacted my educational trajectory. When I did graduate was, I would tell you, maybe like 2013. And that was also because I went through a private school and I did my own, I had to pay in and do my tuition and do everything in a private studying. And I did part of my high school also in a private setting. So that's why I said I didn't graduate too much later in life. So I didn't have that traditional, academic setting. One of the things I wanted to share with you is that through those journeys and navigating all of that and not knowing what direction I was going to go, because at times I found myself like when you go into like figuratively speaking, one of these cross signs and it's like all these arrows are just pointing in different directions, right? It's like, which direction do I go? I know I was well enough to no longer have the intense treatment I had at one point in life. And I was like, okay, where do I go now? I found myself at those crossroads. I think opportunities just came about, something I really feared. I started working with myself and just taking baby steps and really endorsing myself for all those baby steps I did, whether it was just getting up and getting ready, walking out that front door, right? Greeting the first people I saw and just smiling and the baby steps that I took to be comfortable to be among you all today was really something that took a lot of courage, right? And also the valor. And not only that, but also I started developing the self-confidence, right? That a lot of people that were surrounded by me, a lot of NAMI folks, my mentor happens to be a NAMI trainer, and we were just speaking with Greg earlier, who, I'm like, yeah, I was her protege at the time. She saw a lot of potential in me that I didn't see for myself. My one and only strength at the time that I was able to benefit from is I was fully bilingual. So opportunities came about with DMH, and I got certified as a bilingual speaker and started doing translation and interpreting and so on and so forth. So the one strength that they were able to see for me really opened some opportunities. And I can tell you that even at that, just the word work created a lot of fear in me. It was so scary. I would say, I can help you. I can help. And it's like, yeah, but we got to fill out all this paperwork for you to get a paycheck behind it, right? For helping. And just the word work and job, and it just came with a lot of responsibility. It was something that I didn't feel ready at the time. So again, with time and opportunity and wonderful folks like yourself that really took the time to help someone like myself to navigate, office etiquette, work boundaries, some other things that come with the workplace that you may not think about, how to appropriately dress, how to greet other people. Am I going to sit there and if I'm having a bad day, leave that at home because this is work, right? I'm here to provide service and be a support to my peers. I'm dealing with it's like really separate and compartmentalize. That's another thing I needed to learn, those skills, right? So behind that, it's like the opportunities came about to volunteer, get familiar with, different organizations, networking, speaking engagements came about, and other opportunities to also travel and talk about my own personal story at the time. Being very young and being involved in the whole stakeholders process for Mental Health Service Act in 2003. I was one of the young ones, so I was part of the advocacy and really talked to folks about that difficult time that as youth we navigate transitioning into adulthood. So again, just different things, not only navigating my own wellness, finding myself at crossroads, embracing opportunity. Although it was quite fearful and scary at the time, I really had to rely on those that were around me to provide me that level of confidence that I could really make it to my next milestone. So think about those little things if you are someone who may be looking into, exploring opportunities with employment or looking into maintaining your employment in other directions of your strengths. And also for those of you that might be helping folks like myself at one point to come into the workforce, think about all those things that people might navigate within themselves just to get them to speak with you that very day, right? What it took for them to get out their door and get to where you're at. Because that within themselves, it takes a lot of courage. And we really have to celebrate those little victories for people. Aside from that, I can tell you that we're going to learn a lot of resources that I benefited from at the time. That's something that Jose will speak more about, and Paula would share more about what still to this day, although I'm someone that still navigates my mental health, that hasn't changed. I know my diagnoses have changed over the years, depending on what symptoms I'm experiencing. So don't hold me to the other diagnosis I shared earlier. There's been many in my journey that I tell people, it's always depending on what you're dealing with, that's what you're going to be told you're dealing with. So that diagnosis doesn't quite fit, although I did have my, dealing with my my many other symptoms. I was able to, manage those to keep me employed and benefit from different things my colleagues here are going to talk about related to accommodations and learning my ADA rights, and also doing what I need to do and holding that level of responsibility to stay well, to also be that resource for others. So thank you for being here, and I'm glad that, I could be here and share a little bit of me with you today.
Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties. I think it happened. Right, a little one. Sorry. 1 second, everyone. Sorry about that. I think she was typing. Yeah, just need to do it. There we go. Okay. Slideshow. Would you like to click our whole square?
Yes.
Okay. And that way you can see what's on the screen.
Thank you, Rosy, for sharing your story.
Thank you.
So my name is Josue. I'll be talking about work incentives. And today we'll be learning about WIPA, Social Security Disability Insurance, and Supplemental Security Insurance. Who is WIPA? Or a better question is, what is WIPA? WIPA is a free and voluntary benefits counseling service available to people who are 18 to 64 years old, who have Social Security disability benefits, and who are working or who are thinking about work. And what can WIPA do? Well, WIPA benefits counselors, we explain the work incentives. So if you start working, Social Security has some rules that we explain to you. And these rules are not really advertised, not really well known. So it's our job to put the information out there and inform individuals who are thinking about work and who have disabilities and who are receiving benefits. So what to expect when you first contact WIPA directly, or if you call the National Ticket to Work Helpline, which I have the phone number here on the brochure, I can pass out later. We'll answer all of your questions. And then we'll ask you some questions because we want to find out how far along you are in the job search, on your job search. So if you're thinking about work still, but you need some employment supports, we may refer you to different agencies. But if you are already ready to work, you have an up-to-date resume, you're already making applications, well, then we provide you with individualized services. So benefits counselors provide individualized services that include verifying your benefits, looking out for things if you've ever worked before while on Social Security benefits, if you have an overpayment, and then it'll ultimately lead to a benefit summary and analysis report. And this is a reference that we make for everybody who participates in WIPA that they can share with their team and people who are assisting them. And it's a breakdown of their Social Security benefits, the work incentives that are available to them, and an explanation as to how work will impact those benefits. So Social Security Administration has two benefits programs for individuals with disabilities. You have SSDI, which stands for Social Security Disability Insurance, and it's based on work record, okay? So it'll be based on the person's individual work record or the work record of a spouse, which would be survivor's benefits, or the work record of a parent, which would be CDB, which stands for Child Disabilities Benefits. And then the other Social Security benefits program is Supplemental Security Income, which is SSI. And that's based on need, on disability and need. Here's a little bit of an explanation of the differences between SSDI and SSI. Does anybody have any questions about SSDI or SSI? Like I mentioned earlier, SSDI is based on work record. Does anybody want to guess how much it is how much income one has to make to get one work credit?
That's my question, answer it.
Okay.
$1,810.
I don't want to guess.
It's $1,810
Monthly or yearly?
Yeah.
per year. And that's for one work credit. And it caps out at 4 work credits per year. That's why you need 10 years to be eligible for Social Security disability or Social Security retirement. So if you're making a lot more than that, you're still capped off at 4 credits a year.
So if I hear you correctly, SSI will be only good for 10 years. After that, it will convert to SSI.
No, in order to be eligible for SSDI, you must have a work record of 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes. But if you don't have that work record, then by default, if you have a disability and you apply for Social Security benefits, then it's going to default to SSI because you don't have that work record. Or somebody doesn't have the work record.
Also, it's going to affect you if you don't have a work record.
That's correct.
I'm getting that, and I was working when I was 14.
Mhm.
So I was approved for that. But what's the limitation? Is it's going to end at the age of 65 or no?
SSI can continue. It'll continue.
Till you die.
It can continue as long as disability is still present.
So disability is present, you continue to receive SSDI.
Yes, but there's something called medical reviews that are assigned to people, and it varies. It can be every 3 years, every 10 years, and you have to attend those medical reviews.
And if you're getting
Yeah.
SSDI, at the time that you're at full retirement age, it just converts into regular Social Security retirement.
Correct.
So you keep getting it, but they'll call it something different.
So I have a question. Okay, I went to Social Security to find work. So I'm going to work.
Mhm.
So this wake up, whatever you call it, will introduce me to work. Because they told me that they will deduct $300. The biggest fear I have is to go back to work.
It would be Ticket to Work. That's the 1-800 number you want to call if you're
Mhm.
thinking about work.
Mhm.
And every individual is different. There's no set amount of money that will be taken away. You just have to understand the work incentives that are available, and that's why we're here for
So sorry to ask.
as benefits counselors. Go ahead.
How much was that per year? 4,000?
I'm sorry. Oh,
You said the 4 credits, 1,000 something times 4.
yeah, exactly. It'll be 1,810 times 4. I don't have it. I mean,
1,810 times 4. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Math people can do that.
Oh, one question on the back.
Deny the disability insurance, can you still apply for a supplemental?
Well, it would depend because, yeah, the short answer is yes. Yes. There's also state disability. So if you were working and then you cut it,
This individual doesn't have a current work history, but they do have the credits secured from prior.
yeah, SSI first then, because they make a decision faster normally. In the 6 years that I've worked in this area, I've seen that SSI is faster. One last question.
Yeah, I have survival benefits, so how would this benefit me?
Well, you'll get a COLA increase every year. And do you have medical reviews? Maybe we can talk after. All right, so let's talk about SSI, supplemental security income. The highest amount that you can receive in SSI is $1,206. So it's fixed income. Some people get different amounts depending. So like if somebody lives at home and doesn't pay rent and doesn't have to buy their own food, they're paid less than that. They're paid less than $1,206. If you're living in an assisted living place, housing, then it's higher. You get $1,599. So when you work and you have SSI benefits, SSA doesn't count all of your income from work. They reduce your income, or they reduce the amount that you make from work by $85. The remaining amount is divided by 2, and what's left over is the amount that your SSI check will be reduced by. So like I mentioned earlier, everybody's situation is different. If you want help understanding this, contact a benefits counselor. Contact your WIPA or the Ticket to Work helpline. They'll assign you to your local WIPA. Impairment-related work expenses are a work incentive. So if you have an out-of-pocket expense that's related to your disability, but you needed to go to work, then just save your receipts, turn it over to the Social Security office, and that may count as an impairment-related work expense. This can help you because it'll reduce your accountable income.
Examples.
I don't.
I was just asking. Oh, here they are.
Oh,
The
actually.
examples.
Okay, so some examples of IRWs would be, as you can see, attendant care services, medications. Prescription drugs that you pay out of pocket that are very expensive, that are not entirely covered by your health insurance, those can also be an IRW. Talk to a benefits counselor. They'll help you get that IRW through to the Social Security office. Next, we have Social Security Disability Insurance. That's SSDI. Title II, that's right. So you got a list here of work incentives. When you begin working, if you're making above a certain threshold, then Social Security will start counting trial work months, and you're allowed 9 of them. So you can make as much money as you can make, and it won't reduce your SSDI check. And you have 9 of those trial work months.
Repeat that again, 9.
Trial work months. It's known as a trial work period, TWP. Yes. So after your 9 months, if you're still working, let's say you're working full time, Social Security is going to look at a different earnings threshold. This threshold amount is $1,620 a month in gross pay. So if you're working and you're making more than that amount, then your benefits check will pause. But it doesn't mean that it'll terminate your Social Security benefits. It just means that you'll enter into a different phase called EPE, or extended period of eligibility. That's a 36-month period. If you're making above that earnings threshold, you won't receive a disability check, but if you're making below that threshold, you will receive a check. Just let Social Security know how much you're making every month, because there's a lot of different jobs that will pay you differently every month, right? It'll go up and down depending on what you're working in. And if somebody, just one minute. So that's almost 4 years that Social Security lets you try out work. But if you terminate from benefits due to work, there's still a work incentive called expedited reinstatement. So if you lose your employment due to your existing disability, you can get back on benefits without having to go through the whole ordeal of the wait and the denial on the appeals and all. Social Security will make a decision within 6 months with extended with expedited reinstatement. And these are the thresholds. So in 2025, if you're working and you're making more than $1,620 a month, your benefit check will stop after a year. It'll pause after a year. But if you're making below that, you'll continue to receive a check. You got a question, sir?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm on survival benefits. Do you know what the cap is on survival benefits per year?
It's per month. And we don't really like to refer to it as a cap or a limit or anything like that. It just depends on how much you're making. You just have to be aware that if you're working or if you're thinking about work and it's going to be full time, which will probably take you above $1,620 a month, then that could affect your check. But you want to contact a benefits counselor so that you're well informed. Mm-hmm. Yes, and a benefits counselor from the WIPO program can help you understand these work rules. Any questions about work and benefits?
Take that back because we need to write the 1-800 number.
It's right here on
It's in the
the.
brochure. I'll be happy to pass it on. Yes.
Let me get it. I can do that, no worries. Yeah, I'll do it. 1 second, Paula.
This is good information.
There are a lot of good handouts up here. If you want to come up and get them afterwards. Yeah.
I'll pass out the.
Okay.
Here you go, Paula, on, see?
Okay.
We'll pass out the forms.
Yeah, I'll pass out the forms, okay?
Oh. We're gonna pass out these.
Yes, I'll pass them out.
So some of what I'm going to talk about is going to kind of cross over with what they've been talking about. So some things might be a little bit clearer as we talk about work. So let me see. So first of all, we have to tell you, Disability Rights California, we're always required to say this, is California's protection and advocacy system, and our mission statement is Disability Rights California, or DRC, defends, advances, and strengthens the rights and opportunities of people with disabilities. That's who we are. During this training, we will not be providing any legal advice, and nothing said during this training is confidential. So if you have questions about your specific situation, please don't just blurt them out because it's not confidential and people don't need you to know your business, but we will give you a number to call me if you want to talk one-on-one about your specific situation, okay? And we will have a chance to do questions that are more general questions, okay? If you have a disability-related legal issue that you would like to discuss with Disability Rights California, please call our intake line at 800-776-5746. You'll most likely be talking to me because I'm the only one who does the answering stuff. But if you ask other questions, you might be talking to Rosy or somebody else, depending on what question you're asking. Okay, so what is the Americans with Disabilities Act? We're going to go over that. Basically, it's actually the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed the same year that I graduated from law school. So when I was in law school, we didn't even talk about the Americans with Disabilities Act. And now that's what I talk about all day long. But it's a federal law. The Americans with Disabilities Act is a federal law to give rights to people with disabilities. Okay, we're going to talk about how you can request a reasonable accommodation. How does a reasonable accommodation work for me? Is medical documentation needed? And examples of reasonable accommodations in the work. Okay, so a reasonable accommodation is just a way to get help with your work. So everyone uses different methods and support to be successful at work, right? Doesn't matter whether you have disabilities, no disabilities, whatever your disabilities are. People have different strengths and weaknesses, different ways of doing things, different things that help them. If you're a person with disabilities, the law allows you to ask for accommodation so that you can get help with your work and be able to do the work the way that's best for you, so that you can be more successful at work. So it's not always a plus to have disabilities, but in this case, it's a plus, because if you don't have a disability and you ask for that, they can say, no, we don't feel like it. If you have a disability and you're asking for these things because you need it because of your disability, they have to have an interactive process, and you have legal rights to have an accommodation. Which bothers a lot of people, by the way, because they think that everybody should be able to cut accommodations. And maybe they should, but I think that workplaces should be more flexible for everyone. So what is a reasonable accommodation? It's any change in the application or hiring process, the job, the way the job is done, or workspace that makes it possible for an employee to successfully perform the essential functions of their job. Okay? So it can be a lot of different things. It's just what you need to be able to do your job, your disability. So it could be technology, equipment, communication styles, scheduling, time off, disability leave, and many other things can be requested as reasonable accommodations. A lot of people think, well, it's a lot of trouble, or it's something that is expensive, or employers don't want to do it. But actually, most of the people I talk to, their accommodations don't even cost any money. So we'll talk a little bit later about what some examples of accommodations, but I can also tell you a lot of the things that I work with people in your situation. So people that have been on Social Security, they want to work because Social Security doesn't pay that much money. You need extra money. But you're afraid that maybe you can't do the job, or maybe you're struggling on the job, so you want help with the job. I can tell you about a lot of things that help people and resources for that. Okay. Are employers required to provide reasonable accommodations? For the most part, yes. It's a very small place, no, but under California's Fair Employment and Housing Act, any employer with 5 or more employees must provide reasonable accommodations to employees with disabilities, unless the accommodation would be an undue hardship. Not a lot of legal jargon, but basically the California's Fair Employment and Housing Act is basically the California version of the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act, but it gives you a little bit stronger protections. And it says, as far as fair employment, that employees with 5 or more, or employers with 5 or more employees, have to provide reasonable accommodations to their employees with disabilities, unless those accommodations are an undue hardship. And an undue hardship is a pretty hard standard for them to meet. So it could be something that's incredibly expensive. So let me give you an example of what that looks like. So I have disabilities. One of which is a traumatic brain injury. There was a time when I couldn't work at all. And now I'm working, but I still have some problems with my brain injury. Not everything is the same as it was before the brain injury. So we have a database that we work on. Everybody hates DAD, right? Do you know anybody that likes that? It's called DAD or something database. I don't know. But DAD, my brain and DAD do not get along at all. Especially big sections where my brain loses track and it's hard to track across the line. So that's very difficult for me. So it's because of a disability, right? It's traumatic brain injury is a disability. So I get to ask for an accommodation to make my job easier to do work in the database that I have to work in. Now, if I ask them to change the database, to rework their database to make it so that I could use it, they probably would say that's an undue hardship, right? Because I don't know what they cost, what they paid for that database, but I'll bet it was a lot of money, and I'll bet they charge them a lot of money to change it. Plus, the database is set up the way it is to be compatible with screen readers and to be easier for other people with disabilities, because we have a lot of employees with disabilities at DRC. So if they change it for me, it might mess it up for somebody else. So if I asked for that, they might say, no, that's an undue hardship. And I'd have to agree that probably is. But that's not the end of the discussion, because this actually did happen. I didn't ask for that because I do reasonable accommodations. So I knew they'd say that was an undue hardship, right? So I didn't ask for that one. But I said, is there something that we can do to help? Because I do not know a lot about computers, so I don't know what they could do about this. Fortunately, my legal secretary is very good at computers. And he said, it's really easy for me to pull that stuff out that is the part that is really bad for you. I can pull that out and put it right into a spreadsheet. And I can put that spreadsheet set up to shade it and everything, and then put the font that you like and have it so it's perfect for your brain. I'm like, I love you as a work person, not as, not anything bad here, but I was like, this is perfect. So that accommodation, when I asked for that was only him taking 5 minutes to make something that made me much more productive. So that was not only not an undue hardship, because 5 minutes of his time is very little, but they actually was a win-win, because they get a lot more work out of me when it's it's not making me tired out, it's not slowing me down, and I'm taking off like a rocket for 5 minutes of his time. He also likes working with me better because I'm not cranky and yelling about dad all the time. Everybody wins, right? So reasonable accommodations don't have to be problematic. It's just, how can we help you do your job better? So that's it. And does that kind of help you understand the difference between like an undue hardship versus something that's not an undue hardship? Okay. So when I asked for that, they said yes, but if they hadn't, then it would be really good, like a good case for me to go to court and say, wait, you can't deny it unless it's an undue hardship, and 5 minutes of his time is not an undue hardship, right? On the other hand, if I went to court and said, you have to change the whole thing for me, they'd probably say, sorry, you lose. Get out of my courtroom. Okay, so how do you request a reasonable accommodation? So first you have to figure out what you need to be able to do your job better. What are you going to ask for? Now, there's a database called the Job Accommodation Network. That's at askjan.org. And it's a database of all kinds of accommodations that people have used that have helped them. So they've done all the work for you. Like, what has worked for other people? And so you can look up by your diagnosis or by what functional limitation or what's bothering you, what's hard for you. So you can look up and see what's worked for other people and say, not all people are the same, even with the same diagnosis. You're like, I don't need that. Oh, that's helpful. I'll do that. I can ask for that. So it's very helpful. Also on the Job Accommodation Network site, it has a whole database of articles written by experts on reasonable accommodation. So if you see something that you don't really understand, you can search for an article and it might explain it to you and like, oh, okay, that's what that means, or that's how I do that. Okay? Really, really good resource. It's also something you can show your employer if you're trying to work together on finding something. Like, let's go back to the database. Let's say I did ask for the database to be changed. They said, that's an undue hardship, but I didn't know what else to do and they didn't know what else to do. We could both say, let's go to askjan.org and see if there's something that's helpful. See if we can get some ideas, okay? You can also talk to your doctor or your therapist, anybody that works with you, about what accommodations they think you need and that they will support you in getting. And you can also talk to your, family members, support people who know you about what might help you to do your job. Okay? Once you have your request ready, you tell your supervisor or human resources that you have a disability. You do not have to give them your diagnosis. And I actually have had the same situation where my diagnoses changed depending on what's going on in my life or what medications they want to give me, I think half the time. I think it's all insurance-based or something, because they do some wild things with my diagnosis, and I'm just like, as long as it's helping, I won't even ask questions. Mm-hmm.
This is very serious. So if the human resources ask me, thank you for letting me know, I'm not going to tell them what my diagnosis, because that's a serious procedure, right? And I'm kind of worried if they ask me.
In California, you are not required to disclose your diagnosis. Okay, so they ask you, say no.
Okay.
What if they ask, what's going on so we could understand what's happening with you.
Yeah, and that can be good for them to ask what's going on because it's illegal for them to ask, do you have a disability?
Yeah. You can't do
Or
that.
what's your diagnosis or anything like that because that's your private medical information. They're not allowed to ask you about that.
Not even HR,
Sorry?
not even HR.
Nope.
Not even HR.
Because that'll go against the Disabilities Act.
Right,
And you guys can sue them for that.
right. That's,
Even
yeah,
I know that.
there you go. So what you, but it is good for,
You're needing accommodation. They need to know.
okay, so here's the way it can work. So if I want an accommodation, let's say they didn't know I have a disability, I had never said anything, but I'm having trouble with my database, so I'm like, okay, I need an accommodation, then I'm gonna have to tell them I have a disability because otherwise I don't get an accommodation, right? So I can go to them and say, I have a disability, and because of my disability, I have problems with the database, this part of the database, and I need accommodations to make it work better for me. They can ask questions about what about the database is giving you problems? Would this help? Would that help? Is it the shading? Is it color? Is it like, what is it? They can ask questions about that are problem solving, but they can't ask, what's your diagnosis? What does your doctor say about, this or something like that? They can't ask about your medical situation. Sometimes they actually have a duty to talk to you. So if they know you have a disability or they suspect that you do, and this as a supervisor, I actually do this all the time. And when I train managers and employers, I tell them what they should be doing is kind of what you said, where you ask, let's say you have an employee that's struggling, like I'm struggling. They don't know why. I'm just having trouble getting my work done. It turns out it's the database, but I'm just in my little corner. I don't want to say anything. I just want to try to deal with it myself, right? A good boss would come to me and instead of just saying, I'm going to fire you because you're not getting it done, a good boss would come to me and say, hey, I've noticed that your productivity is down, that it's kind of slow, that you seem to be frustrated, whatever. Is there something that I could do to help? Now, notice they didn't ask anything about disability.
And what if they start crying?
And if you start crying, you have the right to cry at work.
I'm thinking about people who have depression,
Right.
people who have problem processing information.
That actually we'll be talking a lot because that's a very common accommodation request. But if you're in the process where they're asking what's going on and you need to talk about accommodation, but you're getting teary-eyed and having trouble, you can say, I have a disability and have an issue and I need to ask for accommodations, but I need to think about it and talk to my doctor and get back to you on it. I'm not ready to talk about it right now. So it can give you some time to get ready for the conversation if you're afraid that you're going to be crying and having a hard time. On the other hand, they can't get you in trouble for crying on the job if you're talking about just, accommodations really. But a lot of people don't want to be in that situation. So you want to just say, hey, can we set up a meeting to talk about it? I can get prepared for the meeting. And then you can call me to help prepare for the meeting. Okay?
Exactly.
But yeah, and so a supervisor asking you what's going on, why is there a performance problem? Okay. Saying, I think your disability is causing you performance problems. That's probably not okay. Saying, do you have a disability? You cry all the time. Are you depressed? That's not okay. All right. Those are kind of
Employees should be compassionate.
Yeah, compassionate.
Not to the point of actually reaching out.
Yeah, compassionate, but not in your business.
Right.
Right? There are a lot of ways to be compassionate without being in somebody's business. And I don't know whether it's disability. It could be you're having a hard day. Like if somebody told me today, I just thanked her for doing something. And she was very flustered. She said, thank you. She goes, I'm just having a hard time because she just had a death in her family. That's not disability related, but of course you're going to be more teary-eyed and having a hard time. And I'm honored that she would tell me that and feel safe telling me that. But I'm still not going to ask her all of her business about it. I just accept that and say, that's got to be so hard. I'm really sorry. Please take care of yourself. And I really appreciate all the work that you've done. Everything's great with me. right? So that's being compassionate without being in their business. That's the standard, okay? So you're going to tell HR and your manager that you need it. And you can use a form that's at the California Civil Rights Department website. It's a really good form to use. Really easy. Tells you right on there, don't put your diagnosis. Fill out that form. It has a Part B for your doctor to sign off. It's super easy to use. And if you want these slides or anything like that, just contact me. I'll send you it. Okay? Okay, now do I have to provide medical documentation? The technical rule is they can only ask for medical documentation if it's not apparent, like they don't know that you have a disability or why you need an accommodation. For mental health, a lot of times that's the case, right? But they usually ask anyway, because I think HR people tend to be like kind of box checkers. So they have on their like form, their box of ask for medical documentation. So they do. So I always advise people to talk to your doctor before you make the request. Again, you can take your little form, have them fill out Part B and say they agree with what you've asked for. Just get it all done at once and give it to them at once. And then you don't have to go back and forth. And you don't have to worry about your doctor deciding later. I don't really support that accommodation. I think you should ask for something. Okay. So like I said, that same form that I suggest you could use has a section for your doctor to fill out that's very easy for them to fill out. Okay. And your doctor does not have to give the diagnosis. Now, a lot of doctors are used to putting diagnoses on their paperwork because usually they're working with insurance or whatever that wants a diagnosis. So you can ask them to give you a form without that on it. They print it out with it. Say, please print me out one without the diagnosis. You can black it out. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to give them the diagnosis. But what they do have to say is that you have a qualifying disability and that you need the accommodations that are being asked for because of your functional limitations of your disability, or the things about your disability that are a problem. Okay? And then you need them to do essential functions of your job. So here are some examples of accommodations for different functional limitations. So you can ask for a schedule change to allow for a medication schedule, sleep schedule, doctor appointments, being able to work when less physically or emotionally tired. This one, I get all the time with mental health. If you're on medication that's sedating and it's harder for you to get up and really thinking in the morning, you may need a later shift or to start a little later, right? If you need to have doctor appointments, and that's medical doctor, psychiatrist, physical therapist, mental health therapist, anybody like that, you may need doctor appointments. They're like, we can't do it on the evenings or weekends. You can ask for an accommodation to have time off to be able to go to your doctor. Okay. This is another one when people were talking about wanting to work, but not being sure if you can. A lot of times I was in the same boat. There was a long time after my accident that caused my injuries that I could not work at all. And even when I went back to work, I wasn't sure what I could do anymore because I hadn't worked for a while. My brain was still kind of different. I had PTSD. I had a lot going on. So I was like, I don't know what I can do, but I wanted to take a chance because I'm tired of not working and I need the money. So you can try something. And then if you're having problems, like it's too fatiguing for you, you can ask for fewer hours. You can ask to work in the morning if you're a morning person, or in the evening if you're an evening person. Or if you get tired by the end of the day, ask for an earlier shift. These are all things that people have asked for. There was someone that was working shorter hours during the pandemic. And then when the pandemic was like they were having more sales or whatever, then they said they had to work minimum hours or they'd get fired. She tried the minimum hours, but her mental health was deteriorating when she did too many hours. So we got her an accommodation to work fewer hours, even though their policy was that you're not supposed to work fewer hours. So those are all things you can do with an accommodation. These are the gateway to be able to try to work and see what works for you. Okay. And like he was talking about, you saw how like the Social Security, the SSI is limited in what they'll give you. SSDI, as much as you work and you get those credits, that can get you more money. So even if you have to stop working in the future, if you have SSDI, that can end up giving you a higher monthly paycheck than if you only stayed with SSI the entire time. And it also gives you Social Security retirement benefits if you end up getting better later in life or something like that. And it's money that's in your bank account for now because you've got food to eat and bills to pay, right? So accommodations can be key to taking a chance, which can be scary, right? But taking a chance to try to work. And the Ticket to Work program and what he was talking about, the SGA and everything in the 9 months where you can do trial months, that's to give you the financial ability to take a chance because it won't count against you. You can try before it counts against you and you lose your benefit. So these all kind of work together. Other things are communication in writing to allow for memory concentration issues, also very common. So if you get anxious or you're depressed or something, you can have memory and concentration problems. You can ask for them to put things in writing so that you don't have to remember everything they said to you. You'll have it in writing so you can refer to it later. You can ask for a quiet work area, uninterrupted focus time, noise canceling headphones, whatever you need to allow for concentration or distractibility as well. Okay?
So can I ask you something? Okay.
Sure.
If I want to work in the nursing field, that was my ex-job. For example, for 9-month trial time, if you get $1,291 per month, and then I want to make $1,800 per month, is it going to affect my benefits? That's the question. Would they take away my benefits? And that's the biggest fear I have when it comes to work, because the cost of living right now is way up, and I have nothing left by the time I pay my rent.
Right.
So if I make more than that, am I going to get in trouble? That's the biggest question.
What you're going to have to do is you're going to want to plan that out with a benefits planner so that they can go through and see, like, do you have any of those IRWs, like medications you pay for or copays that you pay, that brings down what your earnings count? Because it's not how much money is in your paycheck, it's how much it counts against you in Social Security. So it's not just like clear math, but also for the most part, what you want to do is if you're trying to just work a little bit above what you get in Social Security or SGA, that's probably not going to be as effective as if you either stay under SGA or if you work a lot over and then it's worthwhile for you to work and lose your benefits because you don't need your cash benefits because you're making a lot of money at work.
So it's going to affect me too.
But you can also talk to the benefits planner about where that line is. So if you're not comfortable with that and you want to try out, especially if you're not sure you can do nursing anymore, try it out with low enough hours that you don't use up your 9 months yet. You can figure out how to do that. But what those numbers look like, you have to have a planner really go over with you. Okay, so do reach out. Don't just sit there and worry about it. That's what we're here for. Reach out.
I'm so grateful for your help because I've been worried for 5 years. Because I always tell my mom, I don't know what to do. So I was thinking about going back to school this year. So I'm just grateful that you were my example of how you handle the mental and emotional balances of your life for being disabled. And I'm
glad it helps you. And make sure you reach out to the Department of Rehabilitation if you are going back to school.
Because I'm having financial difficulties. And I'm in the right mind and right emotion, but I said, I cannot stay home anymore and not work.
That's actually why I came to Disability Rights California, because I was at a point in my career where the money didn't matter as much as being able to use my experiences and what I've learned over the years to help people to find what I found. It was hard for me to navigate the systems I needed to get to be able to where I am now. So I'm here to try to make it easier, and I'm really glad that it's helpful.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you guys. Because you're my example. Because you have a disability and you're still functioning like I do. But I cannot do it alone.
No.
I got God on my side. It's tough.
So I'm going to get going because we are getting low on time.
Yeah.
But no, you don't have to apologize.
A couple.
Are there a couple other questions?
I just have a comment about, going back to work because, somebody that was receiving SSDI, and then he got charged like $40K back because there's so much money.
You can call us about that too, because you shouldn't have overpayments like that because of the way Social Security works. you should make sure your benefits planner should be telling you how to make sure you're turning in all your stuff. Sometimes you get a notice like that even when you turned everything in. But we also have a program that can help you with your
So
overpayment.
the benefit planner is with
Yeah.
you?
So you can go, we all know how to refer to each other for what we do. But the main thing to remember is you don't have to quit your job because you get an overpayment notice, but you do need to reach out to help because you should not have to pay that whole thing off all at once, like it sounds like in the letter.
Yeah.
There are places to help you.
They reverse, you know.
Good. Okay.
Ready and
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I did try to call them back to work program, but they said I gotta be on a disability benefits just to get it. Is that true?
You may not be eligible for ticket to work if you're on Survivor. No, but you could still get a job and get accommodation. And it might not affect your benefits. I don't know. You'd have to adapt to a benefit.
Because what we learned, because I did get in contact with SSA,
Mhm.
because I'm on survival benefits, my cap is over 23,000 a year. So that means I'm going to get a
I just
part-time
don't know
job.
enough about Survivor benefits to answer. So you'd have to talk to somebody. But yeah, reach out to any of us and both of our organizations can probably find someone to help. Uh-huh.
So what if you,
I'm sorry, this is a gentleman that's been waiting a while.
Where?
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Right over here, Mr. who's
Okay,
speaking.
go ahead.
On the communication, it's interesting. I'm dealing with my daughter and we went through the ADA process. But it was a two-way situation that she's very specific and very blunt, and it comes across as bitchy, okay? And then on the flip side of it, she's 20-something and the 40-something-year-old men are flippant and condescending. And so there was sort of an accommodation of, hey, she's not being bitchy, and can you just subtract this vocabulary? And is that an accommodation that's a possibility?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Very common with autism.
That's what it is.
It's also with, I have accommodations and communications for my PTSD because I need people to speak directly to me or else
Yes.
my PTSD brain will take the worst case scenario.
That's
I
right.
got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So
It's very inflaming language that's not necessary.
So have her call me directly so we can talk about how to word an accommodation like that, but that's absolutely an option. But you
Okay.
have to be careful how you put it.
We have
Okay.
10 minutes.
Yeah. So basically, then you end up, once you ask, you go through a good faith interactive process where you're supposed to be talking back and forth. And remember, we talked about that. Like if I had asked for the database to be changed, they could say no, but then they should be going back and forth saying, how about this? Or I say, how about that? Until you find an option that works for you, or you figure out there's nothing that can be done and maybe it's not the right job for you. Or you call us because they should be accommodating your budget. But you can also call me to get help if you're in the interactive process and you don't know what to do. They're saying things to you that you don't understand. If you aren't sure what to say to their suggestions in the moment, you're feeling pressure, you can tell them you need to discuss it with your doctor. And that gives you time, but also you should be discussing it with your doctor to make sure anything they say will work for you medically before you say okay. Okay? And then you just go back and forth until you get a resolution. Or if you can't get a resolution, you can call us. And that's basically the end of it. We have resources on here. That last one that's turned out in blue, I'm not sure why, but the EEOC enforcement guidance on reasonable accommodation and undue hardship under the ADA is a really good resource on all of reasonable accommodation 101. But yeah, please reach out to me and ask me questions.
How do we do that?
My number? Okay, are you ready to write it down?
Yes.
So
I'm gonna have
it's on the last
to people for me.
it's not on the next slide.
write it down. Go ahead.
No? Yeah, that's our intake number is 800
$1,800 intake.
776 5746.
From 9 to 3. Close on
What was your
Wednesday.
name again?
Paula Tobler. And if you say, I need to talk to somebody about work accommodations, they'll send it my way.
Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome. I hope you're all able to
Thank you.
work if you want to, do what you want to do, and pay your bills without being stressed all the time.
If you
And we can talk afterwards if you want, because we really are at time. I don't know
Yes.
how, yeah.
Can we get a round of applause for our presenters, please? Thank you so much, Ms. Lee.